Yes. Good evening. Hi. Happy summer. I can't believe it. We went directly from the depths of winter right into the heart of summer. And it's a great privilege to be launching a novel by Elizabeth Hay. I want to thank you for coming out on this gorgeous Ottawa day. I want to thank everyone who's watching from home. Hopefully the live stream is working properly. If not, oh, it's there now? Good, perfect. The festival is fast approaching. Do come and visit our website, writersfestival.org. Next week, we've got award-winning journalist Lisa Laflamme in conversation with Melissa Fung. It's going to be a very powerful event looking at human trafficking and the girls that were kidnapped by Boko Haram a few years back. And then the Spring Festival is I'm so excited. It's 4 days of amazing writers and some great nonfiction, so I do hope we'll see you there. My name is Sean. I'm the artistic director of the Writers Festival, and we're standing on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. I think it's important to reflect on what unceded means, which is stolen, which is occupied, and I know there's been lots of talk about reconciliation, but the thing that I'm trying to do in my life and that I would encourage everyone here to do is start with the truth. And one of the great ways to uncover the truth about this place is to read some history or to read poetry or nonfiction or fiction or anything by Indigenous. Perfect Books, which is just across the street, has a remarkable selection of books by Indigenous people that live on this side of the border and the other side of the border. And I highly recommend that you visit them and check out that section of the bookstore. It's also just a good idea to go to Perfect Books no matter what, or any independent bookstore, really. There's been some really % more attractive than people, and 88%, that's a lot. I don't know a lot about math, but that's a lot. And so 6 books a week from an independent bookstore. And what's neat is if you buy them from Jeff Bezos, you get less attractive. People know somehow, and I don't know how that works. I haven't read the science on it, but it's important. It's just, for me, having Elizabeth Hay at the festival is always one of the most exciting things. She'll be with our friends at the Wakefield Festival at the end of May, so you're going to have a teaser now. You can buy the book, listen to Liz, and buy the book, and then having read the book, go and see her at Wakefield. Anne-Marie MacDonald will also, and then having read the book, go and see her at Wakefield. Anne-Marie MacDonald will also be there. There's some great things coming, and I'm thrilled that the Wakefield Festival is doing so well. And I also want to put in a plug. They're doing a tribute evening to our dear friend Stephen Heighton for him, and he's got a posthumous collection of short stories that is coming out from Biblioasis this spring, and boy, what a remarkable man he was, and what a remarkable writer he is. And again, I would highly recommend heading to Wakefield. And like going to the bookstore, going to Wakefield is a good thing for the soul. It's just a good place to go, I would say. Now, our host this evening is Rhonda Douglas. Rhonda is a remarkable human being, wonderful writer, poet, editor, and she runs Resilient Writers, which is doing fantastic work, helping people get their writing ready for the world, helping aspiring writers work through their craft, work through their issues, and have the best possible work to get out to the world. And so she's going to introduce you to Elizabeth Hay. Then Liz is going to read us a little bit, to talk a little bit about the book. Then they're going to chat. We'll have time for a few audience questions, and then everyone here can get their book signed. And Liz has asked that no more than 12 books per customer today. So I hope you can live within that, but Jim wants it to be 13. So let's make sure you're buying lots, and they don't want to have to carry them all the way across the street. So let's sell out and give Liz a little carpal tunnel syndrome tonight. Let's give a warm Ottawa welcome to our host this evening, Rhonda Douglas.
Thanks, John. Thanks so much. So lovely to be here with you tonight to celebrate the launch of Snow Road Station, the latest novel by Elizabeth Hay, or as she's fondly known in Ottawa, Liz Hay. Elizabeth Hay is the award-winning author of 5 previous novels. I'm sure you know them: A Student of Weather, Garbo Laughs, Late Nights on Air, Alone in the Classroom, and His Whole Life. She's also published books of short stories, and including Small Change and a memoir, All Things Consoled, a Daughter's Memoir. She has won and been nominated for and shortlisted for so many awards, so I won't list them all, but they include the Scotiabank Giller Prize, the Hillary Weston Writers' Trust Prize for Nonfiction, among many, many others. She was born in Owen Sound and lived away in places like London and New York before returning to Ottawa, and she's now living in Old Ottawa South. Snow Road Station is novel number 6. I know Sean always makes the joke about how many books you should buy. I think this is the kind of novel where you buy a few so that you can give them to your oldest, dearest friends who are with you in midlife and going to be with you going forward. I think it's a really meaningful thing to do and a great conversation to be had among friends over this novel. And if you are a man, this novel answers the question, what makes a man sexy? So you gotta get it. So Liz is going to start us off with a reading from Snow Road Station. So Liz, please welcome Liz Hay.
I was 19 years old the first time I passed through Snow Road Station. I was 19 years old the first time I passed through Snow Road Station. It's a village near Lanark, about an hour's drive from here. My parents had bought a cottage lot on a semi-wilderness lake not too far from Snow Road Station. And to get there, we drove through Snow Road. And what an evocative name. And what a wonderful, rough, beautiful, remote-seeming part of the world, not far from Ottawa, but its own place, you know. So this cabin that my parents built was off the grid. There was no running water, no electricity, no plumbing. And it's still that way, still off the grid. And over the years, I felt decidedly ambivalent about this cabin. And then with time, you know, came to love it very much. So, as I say, that part of the world is the world of this novel. And the main character is Lulu Blake. She's an actor in her 60s now. She first appears in my previous novel, His Whole Life. 8 years have passed, and she has the bad and good luck of having landed a great and terrifying part at the NAC. And the part is Winnie in Samuel Beckett's Happy Days. And it's really the opportunity of a lifetime. But a few performances in, she's blanking on her lines. And so, not for the first time, discovers that getting what you want is no less complicated than not getting it. So I'm going to just read the opening pages, actually, which happen just around the corner. Fields go back to forest. First love runs to fat. Lulu was alone when she left the theater. In the cold night air beyond the stage door, she replayed that last scene in her mind, the private audience after the audience had left. The sound of him coming down the hall, calling to the four winds, surfing on his own hearty and unstoppable momentum. Let's see if she recognizes my voice. She had swung around in her chair, and there in her dressing room door was Orson Welles, gone to rack and ruin. Lou, he grinned. It's Tony Lloyd. Milder shocks have turned a person gray overnight. The last time they'd been together, in a sailboat on her lake of bays, his hips would have slid into Cinderella's slipper. What a transformation from heartthrob to this. Bloated face, shaggy white hair and beard, wild mustache. "Honey, you're a mess," she said, getting to her feet in amazement. "You should lay off those candy bars." Laughing, he engulfed her in a hug from their hippie days, and her embarrassment burned deeper. "You saw the play," she said, and winced. But his sheepish smile. "I wanted to. I saw the ad in the Citizen, but I had a commitment I couldn't break." He pulled up a chair and settled beside her, resting his hands on her forearms, lightly, in the old way, before letting them fall between his knees. He was bulky in his winter coat, a man out of a tall tale. She had been crazy about him all those years ago, his way of being a bad boy, but kind, living on coffee and cigarettes, wearing jeans without underwear, collecting books but never reading them, disarming her with eager loving that cost him nothing. Had he ever given her a present? Not even at Christmas. And now they were 62 years old, and it was snowing again. She raised her collar, turned her back on the dark fortress of a theater, and headed in the direction of Confederation Park in her hotel. The eerie quiet of downtown Ottawa on a Saturday night in March. Every time she had looked up these last few weeks, it was snowing. On her walks to the river, dinning her lines into her head, snow came over her boots. She remembered her mother saying that across the river in Quebec, they call the snow that falls in March a broom that sweeps away the old snow. What a cunning way to soften the blow of the never-ending accumulation. This snow is helping to get rid of that snow. This broken heart is getting rid of that broken heart. Had she recognized his voice? Only after he began telling her about himself, how he was a businessman based in Asia. "Although my business isn't really kosher," he chuckled, taking her into his confidence in his old unabashed way. Listening to him, the play and her humiliation receded. The bare wire of the past touched the bare wire of the present and zapped her heart. 1979 then, 2008 now. In the park, she rested her eyes on the lampposts, snow globes turned upside down, their spot-lit cascades sweeping sideways, then dashing down, then up again, then down, riding the nerve ends of every air current. Effortless, she thought. A beautiful performance for an audience of one. Despite the hour, she too was on the move. Her car was in the hotel's parking lot, her suitcase in the trunk. She wasn't driving back to Montreal. She was escaping to her lake of bays. So I'll stop. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And now I'm moving over here.
Sound is working okay, right? Okay, I'm getting a tiny little echo, but not too bad? Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Oh,
so glad you,
Rhonda, thank you.
So glad you read
Thank
that. I just love the layering that you do in your writing of the present, the past, the present, the past, and how they just work together. It's just gorgeous. So I have notes because I don't want to forget my lines, because I felt that for Lulu so badly at the start of this novel. If you're under 50, I don't know if you'll feel it, but boy, it's a gut punch. So this isn't the first time we've seen Lulu. As you say, she's a character in your previous novel his whole life. So what is it about Lulu that, made her warrant a whole novel on her own?
Yeah. Well, you don't need to read the previous novel to understand this one. They're independent of each other. It wasn't actually my idea. Now, normally it is my idea, I've never written a novel or a book before that was urged on me by someone else. But in this case, it was urged on me. My British publisher said, after I'd finished his whole life, he said, you know, I love Lulu. There's more to be written about Lulu. Mm. And we were talking on the phone, and I mentioned Snow Road Station, and he said, now that's a great title. So I got off the phone and I thought, you know, I'd rather slit my throat than write another novel with these same characters. Oops. And I rejected it out of hand. But then I went to my little study and sat down, and I thought, you know, Snow Road Station is a great title. I love Snow Road Station. I've always loved the name. And then Lulu. Well, okay. But she has such pluck, and I've always been very interested in women who live alone and don't actually have the support of a family. Mm. She doesn't have a husband. She doesn't have children. And I think within a character like that, like Lulu, there's a lot of untapped potential for romance and drama and trouble, in fact.
Yeah, yeah. I actually did want to say thank you for the sexiness, for the postmenopausal sexiness in this book. Because, right? Thank you. We don't see a lot of that. You know, you don't read a lot of novels where you have characters like Lulu and Nan even, who, you know, gets her own. You know, and so was that a conscious thing going into it? You were going to explore?
Well, if I was going to be with Lulu again, well, this was another little factor in my decision making. His whole life ends in 2000, and I wanted a novel that would be set in 2008 because if you remember, we had absolutely tremendous snowfalls that year. And I found something about the deep snow. You know, it's fable-like. It ignites your imagination. It takes you back to childhood. It makes life come alive again. So I wanted to set it in 2008, which meant that Lulu had to be 62. Golly, I have a friend who's 80. And she still hasn't stopped. I mean, she amazes me, her sexual drive. So I just thought, well,
let's do something with this.
Yeah.
So good. I also wanted to ask you about her friendship with Nan. You know, it's one of those friendships that's complicated but true, and it feels to me like so much of what ends up happening for Lulu just isn't possible without that friendship. You know, they've been apart, they come together, it's so central. Did the character of Nan also, like, were you going to explore that at the same time? Where did that come from?
So this is another thing that I had to discover as I went along. I thought that because his whole life, the main central relationship there was between a mother and son, between Nan and her son Jim. That this novel would be about Lulu and the other son, the estranged son, Blake.
Yep.
And so I went down myriad dead ends, actually, writing this novel, and that was one of the dead ends, thinking that the life of the novel, the heart of the novel, was between Lulu and this problematic, estranged son of Nan's. And it was my terrific editor who encouraged me to see that, in fact, the life of the novel
is that friendship.
was the friendship between Nan and Lulu. And so Blake, this unconvincing character I never quite made convincing, remains a secondary character. and the heart of the novel is that friendship.
I love him and Lulu, though, that as they develop. Yeah,
Oh, that's
that is
good.
lovely. Yeah.
Good.
No, beautiful. This also, I think that friendship is what makes it a great book club book, by the way. It's just so good. So, Lulu, she forgets her lines in the play. It's Samuel Beckett's birthday today. Did you know that?
I did know that.
Is that amazing?
I did
That's
know
good.
that.
Yeah, I just found it out today. Go off now on this tangent over here, but he felt like an entire character to me, Beckett, in the novel. Was that intentional?
Sure. You know, because Lulu blunders with her lines, and this is just around Easter time, and she has a few days off. And as I indicated, she retreats. She heads off to the Lake of Bays, which is where Nan has her house, close to Snow Road Station. And so she is escaping the play, but of course she can't escape the play. Everything reminds her of it, and everything reminds her of Beckett. And this... It's a horrendous part. I mean, I love Samuel Beckett, but he was not kind to his actors, right? So this play, Happy Days, is where the Winnie, who carries the whole play on her back, Winnie is buried first up to her waist and then up to her neck in a pit of sand. And it's just a part that an actor couldn't say no to, and yet a part that is very dangerous, you know, easy to come apart, and Lulu finds she does. But the thing about Happy Days, of course, is that Winnie, the main character that Lulu plays, also can't remember. It's all about not being able to remember. And Beckett is so funny. So one of the great lines in that play is, "What is that unforgettable line?" So the other thing about Beckett is that he was so fascinated by failure. So you know the famous quotation, ever try, ever fail, no matter. Try again, fail again, fail better.
Fail better.
So we've got Lulu in this extremely difficult play, failing at it, and the play itself is about failure, and Beckett himself is fascinated by failure, and then so Lulu, having had this seeming failure, has to work it out as the pages unfold in the novel.
And is she giving up on a dream, or is she finding a new dream? Or is it
I think she's one of those people who has gotten through life by never giving up. Never give up. And at this stage in her life, I think she decides that within the not giving up, there can be some areas of giving up. And so that's what she's sorting out.
I wanted to ask you about some of the research that you did around the maple syrup production in particular,
right.
Because it's maple syrup country. And after I read the novel, and then the weather changed this week, and my immediate thought was, the sap will stop running.
Absolutely.
And I would never have thought that before reading
Ruination.
the novel. Yeah.
Ruination.
So tell me about the research you did around the maple syrup, because you weren't a maple syrup expert before. Were you?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't, although as a kid, a very memorable trip to Stacy's Sugar Bush. This is on the Bruce Peninsula. And my mom took me and my brothers, I don't think my sister was born at this point, out to Stacy's Sugar Bush. And my mother was a painter, and so she set up her easel, and she was painting the sugar bush, and we were just roaming around. And in those days, horse-drawn wagons gathered the sap. So it was a very vivid memory of that. And And why did I want to spend so much time on maple syrup? Because, you know, when Lulu leaves Ottawa and she's running away, and she's lost, and as it turns out, she gets fired, actually, from, and so then she once again returns to Snow Road Station, and it used to be, Snow Road Station used to produce more maple syrup than anywhere else in Canada. And her brother has a sort of a small operation, maple syrup operation. And in working in the sugar shack and in the bush and actually making something, you know, it's very hard work. Long hours, hard work, but you're outside all the time. It's wonderful.
And very particular.
Well, you need to know what you're doing. But it's manual work with a very delicious product at the end. And it kind of revivifies her, orients her, so that she's in touch with the past, the way things used to be done, because it's a simple, not a highly mechanized operation that her brother has. She's in touch with the past, but very much in the present, and it kind of makes her life more coherent for a period of a couple of weeks.
Reading that, I mean, the other descriptions as well, but I think it's you kind of want to move to Lanark, like, after you read it, you know? It's just, it's so immersive and so
to be
beautiful.
fair, you know, it's near Lanark, but Snow Road Station is actually in North Frontenac County.
North Frontenac County.
It doesn't have the same ring as Lanark, though, does it?
General direction. General direction.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, one of the things I found with the book is the portrayal of the men. Complicated, lovely, with one, you know, no spoilers, but with one exception. And really, tender portrayals of manhood in all its middle-aged glory, you know? And yet,
youth, because Jim's still in his 20s, and
that's right.
Blake
a couple
is
of
just in
the
his
youngers
30s,
as well. Yeah, and you know, again, complicated but also tender, both of those. And Blake in particular with what he's struggling with. Lots of couples in the end, happy couples, and some sort of couples, no happy marriages.
To hell with happy marriages.
Is that just like Tolstoy's old thing, or is it just a function of...
There's a wedding
right
towards the beginning, and it's a very wedding of a very imperfect. It's a very imperfect match, and that, you know, again unfolds as the pages turn. But no, people find each other. It's not necessary to get married.
Yep, and it felt to me like with Lulu and Nan in particular, kind of something about a middle-aged woman kind of finding a new way of being or something there. I don't know. Is that something you were trying for? Not really. Just.
I think with older women, you know, in the case of Nan, for instance. Nan says to Lulu, when Lulu is kind of pushing her to get romantically involved, I found love. I'm in love with this place. And there's more that happens after that, but I think that's a very true love that Nan has for that part of the world. And I think older women often fall in love with a place. It might be falling in love with a lake or a cabin or a cottage. It could be a city place, a garden. But there's something very rewarding and fulfilling about that kind of love, which isn't complicated interpersonal love, you know? And after all, a lake doesn't care what you look like in your swimsuit.
Yes. Where Lulu and Nan end up together, sort of in their friendship at the end, and their relationships at the end, you know, it's I think it's a happy ending. We can say it's a happy ending, isn't it? It is, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it is too.
I do think it
but
is.
it isn't a straightforward happy ending, and that's what I love about it.
No. And memory works its way through the book. So, I mean, we start off with Lulu failing to remember her lines.
And then we have these old loves.
And worried about her memory, losing her memory. But that isn't actually what's happening. With her, it's more a crisis of faith in herself. And then as you move through the book, memory plays a different role, and retrieving memory becomes part of the story, so that by the end, I think Lulu and memory have reached a kind of
Reconciliation.
peace. Because it's not at the end a question of memory loss anymore, but rather recovering earlier memories. I mean, Beckett, for instance, always made the claim that he could remember being born. And I'm happy to believe him, you know. But memory works in strange ways. And over time, well, one of the things, for instance, you can be in your 80s, 90s, and remember a poem from school years that you thought you'd forgotten, but it comes back.
Right.
Memory isn't all lost, you know.
I was discussing that with my parents, the remembering far back, like remembering something when you were 5, something when you were 10, something you were 12 in great detail, and forgetting that thing that you had to pick up at 3 o'clock today, you know, like the shifting sands of memory, and what is it about these old loves? I mean, we have Tony, and there's just all of these gorgeous old loves and complicated old loves, some with real bite to them, even.
Right.
Working their way through this story.
Well, I did want to bring the past and present together, and have the past dredged up, Lulu's own past dredged up, as she tries to figure out what she's going to do with the last act of her life.
So speaking of acting then, what is it that fascinates you about acting? Is it the vulnerability? Do you see a parallel between writing and acting? Because it's something you obviously love. I mean, outside the book, but also in the book, you're doing so much with it. So what is it that fascinates you about it?
Well, when I was 14, I decided, I just thought, I have to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Well, I'll be an actress. I didn't say actor, I said actress. I will be an actress. And who knows quite what I was thinking, but that's what I was thinking. And that was a very short-lived ambition, because I became very shy and self-conscious, as most of us do. And being on stage was not a possibility. But the life of actors and theater, in particular, has great romance and fascination. And in fact, Lulu draws the comparison between the backstage of a theater and a sugar shack, where it's like a workshop, and you're kind of alone there, as you are backstage, in a sort of a dim and dusky atmosphere. And in a sugar shack, as you're making the syrup and working, to me, it's also a dim and dusky atmosphere. And there's the two workshops, if you like, have similarities. So I think it's, see, putting on a show, right? What could be better than that?
What could be more fun? Yeah. And the thing about writing is you do get to inhabit the lives of these characters for a little while, you know, in a similar way.
Yes, that's right.
To some extent, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. Thanks for this, Liz. The book is gorgeous. We have some time for questions from the audience. Eric, I think, is going to get us a microphone. So if you have questions, we can take a few. Yep. It's over here, apparently. Yep. You'd be putting it up there. Okay. So do you want to just raise your hands, and then we'll get the mic for you. Or you can just come up, says Eric. There you go. Yeah.
Well, yes.
I met you in Prescott, and you were kind enough to answer my email and give me some advice on some of my writing as well.
Okay.
And as a woman in her 50s who's been a columnist for... Sorry. Okay.
There was feedback, though.
I will be brave.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot we're online as well. Thank you for this tonight, and thank you for being so gracious and giving me some advice on my writing in the past. As a columnist of 16 years, I'm trying to write my first fiction book at 55.
Excellent.
Good for you.
Could you give us a little estimate of at what age you started writing your novels?
Yes, I can give you. I was very slow. So I was 39 before I published my first book, and it was a very slim collection of stories. And I was 50, I guess, when I published my first novel. And that's all right. Yeah, that's
Good
great.
for us.
So just keep working at it.
Just keep trucking on.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. There's hope.
You had mentioned, actually on your website, about these 3 books coming out, and then you felt like they just disappeared.
Oh, right, sure.
Yeah. Do you feel ever that you would like to try the short story again in some way, shape, or
Well,
form?
yes, what Ron is referring to is that my first 3 books sailed out into oblivion very rapidly, which does something to you as a writer. You know, it made me think, all right, I think I really do need to learn how to tell a story. So I don't have any desire right now to embark on another novel.
But you said that before, and then the agent got to you. So
The publisher, yeah. No, that's true. So I'm very interested in writing shorter things right now.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Because there are many forms of writing, right? You don't have to just attach yourself to a novel for 3
Years
or
on
4 or
end.
5 years.
Yeah. Other questions? Oh, here we go.
Hi, thank you very much for this. I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about your thought process as you develop characters, because you mentioned earlier that you would rather slit your throat than to do another book about a character from a previous book, but you've changed your mind. So I just wondering what you think about as you go through that and why you're so done with them when you're done the book.
Did you hear that question? Yes?
No.
Or was that a no?
That was a no.
That was a no. The question was, talk a bit more about your thought process as you write characters, and why were you so opposed to continuing with the character, and why did you so much want to be finished with the character? Well, every so often I get lucky with a character. I think I got lucky with Lulu. She kind of walked in through the door, and that has happened a couple of times, but with characters, I think what you really need is to have a lot of sympathy for them, indeed love them, no matter how flawed they are. Because if you don't like a character, that character doesn't like you either, and will stay flat and not come alive. So, as I say, sometimes you get lucky and a character sort of comes full, there she is, or there he is. And otherwise, you put characters with other characters and watch them interact and see they learn about each other and you learn about them. And this business of I say things and I don't make myself. I'm not articulate sometimes. So it's not that I don't want anything to do with previous characters in a book. Although once I finished a book, I'm delighted it's done. With all of the novels that I wrote before, I was always hoping that I could bring some of the characters forward. So I could, Norma Joyce Hardy from A Student of Weather, for instance, I tried very hard to get her somehow into Garbo Laughs. And it just never worked. Never worked. And whenever I would try to bring a character and just have a little cameo so we'd know where they were now, it was contrived and it didn't work with the novel I was writing. But this time, with Snow Road Station, I brought a whole cast of characters forward. And that was actually very rewarding. I mean, I didn't want to do it, of course, because it's work. But once you embark on it, then you're bringing these characters forward, and it was wonderful, actually, to have them live longer and see what they were up to. Mm. Yeah.
No, we've got someone here first. Sorry. And then, yeah.
First of all, thank you for your books. I love reading them, and I'm looking forward to reading this one. I have a question about your process. Are you more of a pantser or more of a planner kind of writer?
A which?
Well, do you let the characters just kind of write your story, or do you plan your stories in advance?
Yeah. I have a few inklings of where I want to go, but I don't... No, I figure it out as I go along.
Okay.
And I try, as I go along, to figure it out more clearly. But, so I do, write outlines and try and figure out, okay, how am I going to achieve momentum here, and what do I need to have happen? Mm-hmm. But I certainly don't plan everything out, no.
I love what you said earlier, too, about, you had written versions of this where it went in this direction, and then conversation with your editor and kind of, went in another direction.
That's right. A lot hits the cutting room floor, and I don't mind that. Yeah, yeah.
Brave.
Yeah.
You just raised a question that I was going to ask, which is, you made a reference to your editor, and I'm wondering at what stage in the process the editor got involved, whether there was an initial conversation of here's what I'm planning, or you had to produce an entire manuscript before the editor told you were going in the wrong direction. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with this editor and previous editors. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. My relationship with my present editor and earlier editors and how that worked. So I don't like people getting their meat hooks into me too soon. And so generally speaking, I have a manuscript to show. I've taken it as far as I can take it. I've burdened my dear husband, Mark. He'll read it for me, and I exploit my son, who's also an excellent reader. And they give me feedback before I ever show it to my agent or the editor. So but that's only the beginning. So it is a manuscript. It works in a fashion. And then the editor, I have a wonderful editor, Martha Kanya-Forstner. She edited All Things Consoled, and she edited Snow Road Station. My previous editor was also terrific, Ellen Seligman, but about 6 years ago she died. So there was the switch. And what I think Martha is exceptionally good at, and I'm not, so we're a good team, you know. What she's exceptionally good at is seeing the shape of the narrative inside this awkward, I'll just say mess of a manuscript. I don't think it's a mess of a manuscript, but she's able to see. So, for instance, it was Martha who said, the life or the heart of the book is the friendship between Nan and Lulu. And I needed to come around to that way of thinking. And so with Snow Road Station, well, there's that great Mark Twain quotation where he says, he apologizes for writing a long letter, but says, I didn't have time to write a short one. So during the pandemic, Martha was extremely overworked, and so there were long stretches, and I'm slow. So between the two of us, it was a slow process. But I had the time to write a short novel, letting a lot of stuff, as I say, hit the cutting room floor. And the other thing that Martha was extremely helpful with was the time frame. So in that initial manuscript, the story attempted to cover about 4 or 5 years, because there were certain things I wanted to happen. And for them to happen, that much time had to pass. But that, you know, then you're sort of trudging through the wilderness of a story that just to get to a certain point. And her advice was to have the novel be about 6 months long. So it starts in the spring, ends in the fall. And once again, if you do that, then a lot of the stuff that you've written, you can throw away. And you focus on what makes the book coherent. Anyway, I do say in the acknowledgments that without my great editors, I would be a very dead duck. Yeah.
I love it. It's rare to find a novel of 230 pages where, so it's a slim novel, but it's a deep novel. Like, you fall into it, you know, and it's so rich and deep. And so are you saying then that you had written pages and pages and pages that, like, this could have been a 400-page novel, but you sliced it away?
You know, I think in my years of writing novels, there's been a sort of a page count, 350, right?
Right, yeah.
From now on, if I ever write a novel, I'm going to think 200 pages and save myself a lot of grief.
Love that. Okay. All right, well, I think we'll call it there. And Liz is going to sign some books. She's going to sign them over here. So give us a minute to get set up. And if you haven't yet bought all 12 of your quota, you know, now is the time to do so. Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Liz. As all of you know, this is one of our greatest writers. The books are available at the back. The signing table is right here. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Enjoy the summer. We'll see you next week for Melissa Fung and Lisa Laflamme. Thank you.